Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host, where today we are talking UFC Winnipeg, headlined by Mike Malott and Gilbert Burns. We're going to be breaking down four plays here on the show today. Now, last weekend, we had an absolutely monster night, 15 units for clients, 5-0 on client plays, hit both of our 5% max bets. And again, like I said last week, I don't do that very often. It's been like the last 7.5 years. I've had two 5% plays on one card. That's only happened 2 times. Last Saturday was a third time. Again, we swept the board again, and a huge night overall. We also still have a nice 4% client play future on Carlos Ulberg, plus 800 to be the light heavyweight champion by the end of the year, which should also cash, which would add another 32 units for clients overall. So basically, you're talking nearly a 50-unit night, which is an absolute monster night overall. I'm not counting the other one too much yet, but it feels good right now at this point with the ACL tear that unfortunately Ulberg suffered, which will probably cash that ticket. So we got to keep it rolling here. We cannot get that excited over because there's too many events coming up and we've got a lot to do. So if you want to become a client, link down in the description. And with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Mike Malott and Gilbert Burns. Now, you got Mike Malott sitting at minus 310 on the comeback here. You've got Gilbert Burns plus 250. Now, Burns is currently been on a rough patch here. 0-4 run in the organization and had, some flat performances, not the greatest performances overall, but he is fighting high-level guys. Now, over that 4-fight losing streak, it's Belal Muhammad, it's Jack Della Maddalena, it's Sean Brady, it's also Michael Morales. And you're talking, former champions, guys who are going to be fighting for the title soon. So he's definitely fought high-level guys, overall. Now, he is turning 40 in July, which is old for the welterweight division. That's something where you're going to see a decline. You're going to see things start to really fall off the cliff here. Could it have been the last fight we got absolutely ran through? Is it going to be this fight? But we will see overall. Now, you've got Malott on the other side here, who is, definitely in his prime. This is probably going to be the best version of Mike Malott we have seen, throughout his career now, 34 years old. And just really getting better and better. 7-1 in the UFC. 5 of them do come inside the distance here. And he is coming off both wins that he had recently against Kevin Holland and Charles Radke. Both these guys, did have victories last week. And so it was, you're seeing him fight some higher level guys, have nice opportunities to get victories, and he's really showing out overall. Now, he's a well-rounded guy, have strong grappling. He does have, improved striking. And that's something I think that is really kind of been a little bit overlooked in his career where, it's really been the grappling, it's really been the wrestling. And now you're starting to see, especially against Radke, really seeing the striking come to place, really starting to see him get a little bit more confident with his hands here. And I think that is going to play a big role in this fight on Saturday night, because striking wise, I think that he's going to have a large advantage here against Gilbert Burns. I think Burns at this point, he's looked slower, not, as explosive as he used to be. And I think he's just washed. I think this is just the end of his career at this point here. The way he, throws combinations is pretty much just big power looping hooks, looking to land the big kill shot. If he doesn't land it, he's going to look for some takedowns, but pretty much moving forward and throwing big overhands. And, Malott, much cleaner striker, on the feet, fast, faster hand speed, good leg kicks. He can mix those in very well. He's light on his feet and he has good distance management. I think that's going to be very difficult really for Burns at 40 or very close to 40, really for him to really deal with a guy like Mike Malott, who I again think is really entering his prime. Now, grappling wise, Burns will have the advantage here. He's got high level jiu-jitsu. That is going to be available there for him if, Malott sticks his head in the wrong spot or something like that. But it's not that really Burns has been a guy that has really, been submitting guys left and right. Since 2019, he's had 14 fights. He only has 2 submission wins over that span. So I don't really see that really kind of playing out that way here. I think Mike Mallott's a guy that is, good enough in the grappling, can escape danger, not have to deal with certain things. And I think he can just find opportunities. Plus, he's going to be the physically bigger guy here, and I think the stronger guy here. And I think he can kind of bully him a little bit. I think that's going to help Malott, defend some takedowns, work back to the feet, and really just have the opportunity to be the bigger guy against not just a smaller guy, because Burns is undersized for the division, but also the guy who's going to be aging out really of the sport here. So I think this is a spot here where Burns, the grappling and the submission game of him will really keep Malott kind of just working at range, have this fight play out on the feet. I don't think he's going to be looking for endless takedowns. I think it's going to be a part of his game. He's a wrestler. Of course, he's not just going to say, I'm going to stand and strike for, the entire fight. But I do think that it's primarily going to play out in the feet. And I think that this is a spot here where Burns is kind of done here. And this, if he loses, he's going to be on an 0-5 run, and there's a good chance that this is his retirement fight here at this spot. I think they're setting this up for Mike Malott to get a victory on home soil, and I think the knockout will materialize because I don't think this plays out on the ground. I think it's going to be a striking matchup here. So getting off the minus 310 number, you can get Mike Malott by knockout minus 115. I think that's a very strong number here, and I think that there's a possibility that Burns could look for the door when this gets difficult. So give me Mike Malott by knockout minus 115. And the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Jasmine Jasudavicius. She is minus 300 in the comeback here. We've got Karine Silva. She is plus 250. Now you got Jasmine here, who was coming off a loss to Manon Fior, which obviously wasn't the greatest look for her. She got blasted in the first round. We did cash on Manon in that spot. But the thing about it is Manon is an absolute world beater at this point. Unless your name is Valentina Shevchenko, she's pretty much beating up everybody. She's big, she's strong, and a tough matchup for most females. But you do have Jasmine here, who was on a 7-2 run in the UFC, and she's been able to utilize her wrestling and utilize her size to really find opportunity to out-grapple her opponents, leverage her size, get the takedowns, win positionally, bank the rounds, have that smothering wrestling pressure, and she's been able to do that over and over again, and that's really where she's been able to find that success. Now, Silva, on the other side here, she was on a nice run, now on a 1-2 run, 5-2 in the UFC, and she does have some decent striking and really strong grappling. That's really where she's been able to find most of her success, is on the takedowns, working her submission game, and really hunting for those finishes. And there's a spot where, no matter where Silva is, whether she's on her back or in top position, she always has that submission threat. Now, the biggest advantage here, I think, absolutely is going to be the wrestling for Jasmine here. I think that she could go out there, and if she sticks to her game plan, I think she's going to be able to find that success here if she doesn't really get away from it. Most of the time she doesn't, she's looking for those takedowns. Over her last 6 fights, she has secured 13 takedowns with a combined banked time of 33 minutes of control time. Now, that's massive. When you're talking about the, winning minutes and we, that's something that you want to know, bank rounds. She does it at a very high level. Again, she can look for those finishes. She'll ground and pound. She'll look for her own submissions. But most of the time, she just finds that top control, and that's where she's able to really let the fight play out for her. And Silva on their side here, she's vulnerable to being taken down. Out of her last 3 fights, she's been taken down 9 times. But the interesting part about that is the fact that Silva is comfortable off of her back. So she's not really, not that she doesn't really want to be taken down or be, playing off of her back. But she's comfortable with it because she believes in her jiu-jitsu. She believes that, hey, if we're on the ground, I can reverse it. I can hunt for submission. I can find opportunities to take the advantage. And that's a spot where we're kind of see how that plays out here. But I do think that this is also a situation that the threat of the submissions for Silva is going to really force this fight to make Jasmine play it more safe, not have to, when she's got the takedowns, I don't think she's going to be overly aggressive on top and really hunt for the finish and look for the finish. She knows that that's a spot where that Silva's going to have the ability to look for a submission or grab something. And I don't think she wants to do that. I think she wants to keep that top control, stay heavy, and work from that spot. Now, this fight is minus 280 to go to the decision here. I do think that's where this plays out here. Out of 14 career wins for Jasmine, 8 are by decision. Over the last 4 fights for Silva, all of them went to the scorecard. She's 2-2 over that span. I think this is a spot where you're going to see Jasmine get the job done, get the control time, and really wear on Silva. Silva's cardio has always been a little bit iffy, and is she going to be able to, work out of those positions? I don't think so. So give me Jasmine Jasudavicius by decision minus 140. And the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be John Castaneda. He is minus 115 on the comeback here. We've got Mark Vologdin. He is minus 111. Now, you got Vologdin here, who's coming off an absolute war, just absolute battle on Dana White's Contender Series, back and forth, total war. If you have not seen it, it's absolutely worth looking up and taking a look at it, because it was a fight where, a lot of times Dana White's looking for whoever wins inside the distance, has a good knockout or someone who's really aggressive. In this spot, you saw that, Vologdin lost, but UFC was so happy with the performance and Dana White was so happy. They said, listen, we got to sign this guy. Let's see what he can do in the UFC. Now he's making his UFC debut against John Castaneda this Saturday night. Now, John, the other side here, is a well-rounded fighter here who has plenty of UFC experience. Now, this is a guy that, was 4-4 in the UFC. And that doesn't sound that great when you kind of look at it. But when you look at really who he's lost to, he's beaten some decent fighters. And then he's lost to some pretty strong opponents. You look at one of them was Nathaniel Wood. Nathaniel Wood is on a rocket ship right now. The guy's 7-1 run in the UFC has looked better and better as he keeps going, keeps moving forward here. Daniel Santos is 14-2 in his career, 4-1 in the UFC. He lost to him also. Daniel Marcos is 18-1 in his career, 6-1-1 in the UFC. And the other one was Chris Gutierrez, who was a UFC vet, very, very tough UFC vet. That's a tough, run of guys here for, Castaneda, who's, a good fighter, but he's fighting pretty strong opponents and has had a good account of himself in certain spots here. While Vologdin, outside of Dana White's Contender Series, the last 3 fighters he's fought are really bottom of the barrel fighters here. If you just giving the record 8-5, 10-11, 6-8. I mean, these are guys that, aren't, they have losing records in the regional scene. So this is a step up in competition here for Vologdin. This is a step down, I think, for Castaneda compared to who he has really fought at this spot here. I also think that Castaneda, he's got the better striking and he can back it up with the wrestling here. He's a Division II college wrestler, or was a Division II college wrestler. Vologdin has weak takedown defense. On Dana White's Contender Series, he was taken down 3 times with 4 minutes of control time. So he has been taken down. He has been controlled. And that's where Castaneda can mix it in. Again, the good striking that he does have, but he can mix in these takedowns. He has 11 takedowns over his last 5 fights. And that just shows he can tuck takedowns very well behind combinations, very well timed, can mix them in. And that can really throw off an opponent, especially an opponent in Vologdin, who's a guy that, is very inexperienced, especially at this level, at the highest level. And now he's facing a guy at a pick and price tag. The price does seem off here. And also you got to look at Castaneda, the far better striker. He's got good volume, good forward pressure. He can mix it up, very good at range, nice leg kicks, can chop away there too. Will have a 6-inch reach advantage on top of everything. And you've got Vologdin, who's just going to struggle cutting distance. I don't think he's going to be able to get inside that range, get inside that reach. He's undersized for the division. I think this is a spot here where Castaneda can really pick him apart at range. And you've got a UFC caliber fighter, who has lost a couple of fights, but again, high level guys against a unproven guy, coming off a loss on Dana White's Contender Series, and yet we're at a pick and price tag. I think this line is off here. Give me John Castaneda at -115 to get the job done. And the last one here we're going to talk about is going to be Jamey-Lyn Horth. She is -150 on the comeback here. We have JJ Aldridge. She is +140. Now, this line opened up -240 for Horth, and we have consistently seen money come in on JJ Aldridge, which I think is some interesting line movement. Now, you've got JJ. She is on a 3-1 run in the UFC. She's tough. She's durable. She's got some decent striking overall, and she is coming off of a win over Andrea Lee, which Andrea Lee, not very good. She's on an 0-6 run. So not very good. And I've probably done with UFC. Then you've got Horth in her side here. She is also on a 3-1 run, but I do think that she's got multiple advantages here. And I think the biggest advantage that really sticks out when you're rewatching footage here is her strength and her physicality, because you've got JJ, who is just known to kind of be weak, not have that strength, not have that physicality, not really have any of the things where she can really utilize, when they're in the clinch. And I think that's really where Horth, who's going to be able to bully her, push her up against the fence. She's big for the division. Not only that she has the strength and physicality, but she just has a large frame for the division overall. She can move forward. She's going to be aggressive in the clinch. She's going to have elbows, knees. She's going to mix it up. And I think that's going to cause a lot of problems for JJ to kind of create the space, get back to range, utilize her jab, utilize some of her striking overall. And I think anywhere where they go, I do think that that's where Horth is going to have the advantage, because even if they go for takedowns here, or Horth goes for takedowns, she can leverage her size. She can bully her down. She can drag her down. Aldridge, can be taken down. And even when Aldridge is taken down, she could be held down. So there's multiple issues there, I think, for her in this spot here. And on top of it, again, the lack thereof of physicality for Aldridge, I think is really going to make her struggle in the clinch. on the mat, even in the striking, the harder hitter between them is going to be Horth overall here. But I think the better process, the better striking, the better game plan here is going to come from Horth overall. JJ very hittable in the pocket, has a negative striking differential, so she's getting hit more than she is landing on her opponent. And if she's going to be getting hit against Horth, I think you're going to be seeing the harder, more impactful shots landing from Horth overall. But I do think this fight does go the distance here. Also, the books think that as well. It's minus 430 for this fight to go to the decision here. But I do think that this is a spot here where Horth can win outright here. I think minus 150. This number has come in. I like that price here. When it was at minus 230, 200, I think is probably more in there, is probably more the true odds here, because I am not high on JJ Aldridge at all here. But now we're getting a discount here. Money's come in on JJ. Give me Jamey-Lyn Horth to get the job done. And there you have it. So there you have it for UFC Winnipeg. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, I've got a 4% play up right now. Also, another play as well. We'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. So I'm really excited about this upcoming card here. We've got a lot of events coming up, and as well as we are coming off an absolute monster night at UFC 327. So let's keep that momentum going. Let's keep it moving. And I'll see you next week. And let's cash.